Alright, come on. Get into bed. So, you gotta get a lot of sleep. It's 11:55. It's almost midnight.
Can you tell me a scary story?
Scary story. I got one. Over 100 years ago, there was a ship with a crew and a lot of gold sailing across the ocean. One night, a fog rolled in. And in that fog, they saw a light that burned right through the fog itself. So the crew steered the ship towards the light, and it was a fire. They didn't know what caused it, so they sailed faster and faster towards it. And lo and behold, it was just a campfire. And it steered a little too close to that fire. The ship crashed into the rocks beneath the water. As the ship went down, so did the crew and the gold. And as it did, people flooded the ship's wreckage and looted all the gold. And on the 21st of April, 100 years after the incident, the crewmen would rise up through a fog to reclaim their gold and to take their revenge on the people who caused the fake fire.
Is that a real story, Daddy?
Well, there is such a story that is true about that. But it was mainly used in a horror movie back in 1980, made by John Carpenter. But that's enough scary stories for now. It's time for bed. Here's your little Sam. Okay. Good night, sweetheart.
Good night.
Love you.
Love you.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Ginger Snaps here. My name is Stephen Harold, and today, the movie review I will be giving you guys today is none other than The Fog, released in 1980, directed by John Carpenter, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Tom Atkins, Janet Leigh, Charles Cyphers, Nancy Loomis. Oh fuck, a lot of good fucking actors, especially the who's who of the John Carpenter family. The movie is about the town of Antonio Bay, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary, celebrating the 6 founding fathers of the town that made it so great, not knowing about its dark secret. In the midst of all this, quite literally, a fog comes into town and starts to cause ruckus and mayhem, leaving all kinds of bodies in its wake, and no one knows why. But it is believed that it is based around an old ghost story. Prior to last year, I had not seen the original Fog. I had actually seen the remake of The Fog and thought, well, this movie fucking sucked. But, you know, I ended up watching The Fog for the first time, and wow, is it one of my favorite John Carpenter films of all time now. I am a big John Carpenter fan. I loved all of his work that he had previously done, but I never got around to watching The Fog until last year. So, here is my little review on what I think about The Fog. For the story of this movie is pretty much based on a real story that had happened. John Carpenter has said many times in many interviews that this story is very much true about a ship that, you know, crashed and sank and people looted the gold of this ship. Now, of course, the element that he wanted to put into there was that they're drawn in for their revenge and, you know, cause havoc, but in, you know, a fog. Now, of course, with that story itself, and especially with all the characters and the fact that this town has this little dirty secret 100 years prior, is very much a nice little ghost story. Now, what do I personally think of ghost stories like this? Well, if you saw the beginning of this video, it's definitely one of those things you tell at a campfire. It's one of the things you tell the young kids, like I did it with my daughter. Now, does it hold up today? Of course it does. This movie still does hold up today, especially with its story and, of course, with everything that happens around it and everything centered around this whole entire film with the story. It just makes it that much better. One thing that is definitely a positive with this movie is definitely its characters. Like I said, this movie was casted very much fucking well with regular faces with John Carpenter. I mean, you had Jamie Lee Curtis, who was famous for, Halloween. Then you had Nancy Loomis, who was also famous from Halloween. And of course, Tom Atkins, who at that time I'm pretty sure had just done Halloween 3. Then you had Charles Cyphers. You also had Janet Leigh, who, we all know as Marion Crane from fucking Psycho. And this movie, with its cast of characters, was so well done that you have to give props to the movie, especially Adrienne Barbeau, who does a fantastic job as the radio DJ Stevie. This movie's characters, you pretty much grow the attachment to. John Carpenter just knew who to cast and how to make great fucking characters. And this movie's characters is just above and beyond one of the best I've seen in film. I mean, when you gotta remember, when I watched this for the very first time last year, I was shocked at the star power in this movie. Now, of course, some people could say, like, oh, well, what do you expect? It's just a typical John Carpenter movie. But for first-time viewers, if you've never seen this movie and you see the acting chops that's in this fucking movie, I am telling you, you will be so damn impressed with the acting and all the characters in this film. Now, of course, every movie that John Carpenter has done, especially when it comes to horror films, there was always that the killer, the villain, right? It's not Michael Myers. It's essentially a ghost ship that has pirates or, a crew that had gold and was essentially tricked into thinking there was a fire that they could just help, and then they sank and lost their lives because of these 6 founding members of Antonio Bay. Now, of course, they seek out the revenge 100 years after the incident, and of course, they are creepy looking, like it's not your prototypical slasher. This is more of just a ghost story type of film. But when it comes to these characters, the villains themselves of this movie, you can't really call them villains in a way. I mean, like, they're just taking or seeking out their revenge for what happened 100 years prior. Now, you don't really get a good look at their faces, which is good. You don't want to actually see them, but you can tell when it comes to how unstoppable they are. Essentially, they are ghosts. They are spirits. But the fact that they use the fog to kind of hide and blend in with is such a great touch. And honestly, this movie's villains, I have to say, are fucking just perfect when it comes to this story. Now, granted, the kills are not really, per se very impressive, but they do have some sort of anger and some sort of brute force to it. I mean, like, it's not just one typical stabbing, it's like a bunch of them, right? Just the implements of the fact that the kills are really good. I can't really per se give out my favorite kill in the whole entire movie because they're all pretty damn good. But of course, we only have 6 kills in the whole entire movie. And that, not all movies have to have a high body count, right? I mean, like, the first Halloween film had only 5 people die in the fucking movie, right? So, for this movie's kills, they're very good. I will say that. You don't, less is more. You don't really get to see the gore of it. And that's a good thing. Less is more, right? So, when it comes to their kills, I can't really per se, give out what's my favorite one. But for sure, they're all very good. They're all brutal in some sort of a way, especially in the nature of it. But, yeah, other than that, the kills are very much impressive as hell in this movie. And I have to pretty much say it too. It's still one of those things where it's just like, you don't see kills like this that much anymore. You just don't. The other thing that is so goddamn good about this fucking movie is the fucking score. The soundtrack for this fucking movie. Like, John Carpenter just knows how to make a perfect score. Okay? I mean, the fucking theme for this goddamn movie is so good. It's one of his probably top 3 top 5 best scores in his, soundtrack, repertoire, right? Like, even just having the soundtrack on my phone just to listen to it half the time, it's definitely one of those things, especially with certain tracks, that if you're like telling a ghost story or you're listening to something that's like eagerly like a ghost story in a way, you think of the Fog soundtrack in a way. And honestly, like, it's so fucking effective, especially when it comes to its theme. John Carpenter has always been a master when it came to horror, but he's definitely a master when it comes to making a very good score. And this fucking movie score is one of the best. Above all else, this movie is definitely one of the films that, is highly talked about when it comes to John Carpenter's filmography. This is a film that he really wanted to do, and it was a film that he was excited to do. It was a standard ghost story. He didn't want to go back to doing slashers all the time, right? He wanted to do his own different things. And I mean, like, when you think of The Fog, the film that he had released, honestly, it's always in someone's conversation of like, what's John Carpenter's like top 5 films? The Fog is always in the top 5. I have not heard anyone ever talk bad about it. It's one of those movies that's so damn good that even over time, it still is a good treat to watch. And I highly, highly recommend watching The Fog. As for my rating for this film, like I said, it's definitely, when it comes to John Carpenter's films, it's in my top 3. And it's a film that I can always go back and watch time and time again. Are there scenes that kind of, drag on for a few minutes or whatever, that kind of get a little stale or whatever? Yeah, maybe. There is one thing for sure that I remember every single time I go to the lobby, which, if you guys live in the city of Edmonton, that's one of the last remaining movie rental stores here in Edmonton. The owner himself, Kevin, he always brought this up, and it was something I never thought of until he said it. Tom Atkins just happened to have 2 films that came out in 1982 where he gets a role where he sleeps with a girl 20 years younger than him. I mean, he got lucky with fucking Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie. I don't know what it is. I mean, like, I originally thought it was the mustache, but he doesn't have a fucking mustache in this movie. Anywho, yeah. For my rating of this movie, God, it's I know a lot of people kind of rank this very high on their list. I have not heard a single person talk so negative about it, and I'm going to be one of those people who definitely just doesn't talk very negative about it. So, for my rating, I'm going to give John Carpenter's The Fog a 9 out of 10. This movie still holds up. This movie is still one of the classics that just stands the test of time. 42 years after its release, honestly, a lot of people are still talking about this movie and how great it is, especially when it comes to the characters, the story, and of course, the score. This movie deserves a 9 out of 10. So what did you guys think of this movie? Is this one of John Carpenter's masterpieces? Is it one of the films that you think is in his top 5 or hell, even in his top 3? And is it a film that you enjoy watching yourself? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you hit that thumbs up if you like this video, and also subscribe for more content. Other than that, guys, that's it from me. This has been the Ginger Snaps here. My name is Steven. I'm going to go get myself a stomach pounder and a Coke. I'll talk to you guys later.